A very good morning to all of you. We have been dealing with a poem by Andrew Marvell, a metaphysical poet. The title of the poem is To His Choir Mistress. In our previous lecture, we got introduced to the poet, and at the same time, we understood the background of the poem. We came to know that this poem was written by the metaphysical poet Andrew Marvell, and it must have been written in 1650s, and it was not published until 1680s. Means it was published after Marvell's death. We also understood that this poem is a carpe diem poem. Carpe diem is a kind of technique used by the poets of this period. It means see the time before it flies away. Catch the time. Don't let the time run away from you. Make the most of the best of the time. Okay, that is the theme of the poem, and he follows the example of Roman poets like Horace, in which he urges a young woman to enjoy the pleasures of life before death claims her, before she dies. Okay, and this is a kind of an attempt by the poetic speaker, the poetic persona, to seduce the lady in the title, the choir mistress. Mistress is a beloved, and this beloved is very shy. Choir means shy. She's what we call showing a kind of prudence. She's not ready to respond to him positively. So at the same time, in the next part of the poem, he deals with the very grotesque theme. There is a grotesque intensity on death itself. So grotesque is a kind of figurative device used by the poets to talk about the unwanted or undesired things. So we understand that the speaker in the poem is displaying or showing his erotic energy. At the same time, he also displaces this erotic energy with the talk on death. He talks about death. We shall try to understand the poem line by line now. To His Choir Mistress by Andrew Morwell. Had we but word enough and time, this quietness lady were no crime. So in the first two lines he says, had we got, if we had enough time, and if we were the eternal part of this world. If the world is not eternal for us, we are going to die. But had we got enough time and enough of the what we call life, this quietness, this shyness, this prudence, lady, this is the word he uses to address the lady. It is a kind of occasion. Okay, post we can say. This quietness, she is directly talking to the lady. This quietness, lady, were no crime. So he uses this particular clause in which word is used. Your quietness would have been no crime if we had got enough time, but we don't have enough time. And in that case, your quietness becomes a kind of crime. So time and crime rhyme with each other. At the same time, you can see quietness and crime are the examples of alliteration. The first letters of these words are repeated. Therefore, it is an example of an alliteration. So we understand that he reminds that lady, the mistress, who is very shy. He says to her that we don't have enough time. And had we got enough time, your shyness would not have been a crime. But now it is a crime, he says. We would sit down. Then he imagined the situation. You must have written essays in your 10th standard or 11th standard, 12th standard, etc. If I were the prime minister, if I were the principal, okay, such kind of construction is used. If if there were enough time, there was enough time or enough word enough, we would then what would you do? Then he lists down the things that they would have done. We would sit down and think which way to walk. We would take time to think over, to choose the way and pass a long love's day. And we would have passed our day in thinking itself, in sitting itself. We would sit down, look at the grammar and focusing on the grammar as well. This is had we had dash over construction, and then he uses woods structure. We would have done this, we would have done that. आपण असं केलं असतं, तसं केलं असतं. Okay? We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass a long, long love's day. And our day would have been very long and it could have been full of love. Again, an instance of alliteration you can find here. Again, he imagines. Now, all these lines are imagination, means he think if we had time, अगर ऐसा हो तुम अगर होती तो ऐसा होता वैसा होता. You must have heard the song in Hindi as well. ऐसा होता. Thou by the Indian Ganges side, shouldest rubies find. So, of course, this is a very common device. Inversion is a very common device. The structure is inverted. You would have been searching rubies on the bank of the river Ganga in India. I, by the tide of Humber, would complain, and I would have been on the bank of the river Humber in England, complaining that she is there in India. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. So these are the examples of what you call the metaphysical concepts. He is referring to Bible here. In the Bible, there is a mention of the flood in which the world will be destroyed. So he says, you would have been looking for finding the rubies on the river, on the bank of the river Ganga. Now you should focus, you should understand this. Actually, I'll explain these things later. Means it shows that England had its colony in India by then. East India Company had come to India. Therefore, they know about India, and there were rumors about India. India was considered as the land of treasure, wealth, rubies, etc. And I would have been complaining against you on the bank of the river Humber. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse to the conversion of the Jews. I would have kept loving you. Okay, before 10 years before the flood. Before the flood would have occurred, I would have loved you because the days would have been very long. And at the same time, I would have kept you loving, I would have kept loving you till the conversion of Jews. Now, what does it mean? Actually, Jew is a kind of religion which is found in European countries, and Israel is the land of Jew people. You might know, we call them Yehudi. So, conversion of the Jews is a kind of Christian predict. Many Christians think that the conversion of the Jews to Christianity uh, will be the end of time. It will be the end of the world itself when the Jews will convert to Christianity. So Jews are very conservative regarding their religion, and if they convert to Christianity, that will be the end of the world. This is how many Christians. This is what many Christians believe. Means these are the impossible things that he is referring. I understand. He is referring to all impossible things. Because once the flood occurs, nothing will remain, and the Jews would never convert to Christianity. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow, and 100 years should go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest, and age at least to every part. And the last page should show your heart. For, lady, you deserve this state. Nor would I love at lower state. So he says, he talks about all impossible things. The things which will not happen at all. She will not go to Ganges side to find rubies. He will not wait for her on the river uh, in the England. Okay, and Jews will never convert. So he's talking about all impossible things. This is a kind of hyperbole. So he says, my vegetable love. Actually, it is again unusual. Love is often compared to a beautiful flower. Therefore, means what is the meaning of this particular comparison? Let's try to understand. Vegetable love is love that increases so slowly. Okay, that's what means the love that increases slowly. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. It should spread like the kingdoms, and it should grow slowly. And therefore, he says, I will spend 100 years to praise thy eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. I shall praise your eyes for 100 years. Even ever, thy means ever. This is the archaic use of English. Forehead gaze. When means you are looking, your way of looking. Gaze means katakshi in Marathi. Means the way you look at me. I shall keep looking at you for 100 years. I shall praise your eyes for 100 years. 200 years to adore each breast. I shall spend praising your breast, your beauty, but 30,000 to the rest, and remaining 30,000 years to praise each and every part of your body. An age at least to every part. He says an age. Okay, एक yug, that is what we understand by an age. 100 years at least to every part, to praise every part of your body. I shall spend one age, and the last age should show your heart. Okay, the last age. For example, we say 15th century, 16th century. So we talk about Elizabethan age. So one age I shall spend to praise, one age each to praise your every part of the body. And at last age, and the last age should show your heart. At least then you will respond to my love positively, accept my love. So he's talking about all those impossible things. We know very well that man's life is of 100 years at most. In exceptional cases, it may cross, but they are very rare examples. Means most of us don't live for 100 years and life is short. But he's saying if life was not short, longer, if life was eternal, I could have done all these things. For lady, you deserve this state because you are so beautiful. You deserve this love. Nor would I love at lower rate. So I would also love you at more kind of what we call, I would have given more value because you deserve it. You're valuable, you're precious to me. My love would have been precious. Now, after doing this, he talks about the contrast things. But is opposite to what he said earlier. We shall understand it in the next part of our lecture.